Hello everybody, my name is Ratnus and welcome to This Week in Mythic Plus. This week's affixes are Tyrannical, Necrotic, Spiteful, and of course, Tormented. It's not a phenomenal week for Mythic Keystones, not impossible either. There are a couple of dungeons that this week changes the value of quite a bit. Compared to the other Necrotic week on the calendar as well, this one has some nice qualities, which are that you have the danger of the pack when Spiteful spawning, right? That's kind of towards the end as Spiteful starting to spawn. That's also the same time that your tank wants to be kiting. So the upside is all the difficulty is kind of pushed into that same moment. The downside is, your tank isn't going to be able to help out like they would on most Spiteful weeks, keeping your melee DPS safe. And your melee DPS aren't going to be able to help out as much as they would on most Necrotic weeks for keeping your tank safe during that kind of tough moment while some of the packs at 20% and others are dying and Spiteful Shades are spawning. So the big piece of advice I have for you this week is to save whatever AoE crowd control, Binding Shot, Ursul's Vortex, all those sorts of effects for the end of the pull, Ring of Peace, really just AoE stuns as well. For the end of the pull. Use it as mobs are dying, see if you can hit the first couple Spiteful Shades with it, and that will, I think, go a long way towards helping in a lot of cases. Of course, the other big challenge of this week is that a lot of the dungeon bosses are quite difficult with Tyrannical and Necrotic both being active. So let's go dungeon by dungeon, and I'll just point out a couple of things that jump out to me in a few of them. Of course, if you're interested in my routes, they're available on Raider.io every week. There's a link in the description. They don't change too much from week to week anymore, but I do go through and make sure that they'll all work for the affixes. And so, grab them if you want. There's version with and without skips for each dungeon. So in DOS, there are some bosses that are quite nasty in here just on any Tyrannical week. I would say the Necrotic Twist adds quite a bit of difficulty to this boss in particular. It makes it a nice marathon type experience where, particularly on Maleficent, your tank might be surprised by just how much damage they're taking over the course of several minutes. So between your tank and your healer's mana bar, there's going to be some trouble on this fight for a lot of groups that I think wouldn't expect it. Of course, Akar and Dealer, always hard fights, although I would say less hard with Necrotic than the other two. I would say kind of amp up more with Necrotic. Okay, Halls of Atonement. The big point of difficulty is always going to be Echelon in this dungeon for most groups, in my experience at least. So what you really want to do is make sure you have Lust for this boss. A common mistake I see groups do is they Lust Halkias, and then they get to Echelon and they have like 7 minutes unsated, right? So I would say basically never want to Lust Halkias. It's acceptable to Lust a first pull of the dungeon. It'll usually back up for Echelon in a lot of cases, but don't use the Lust on Halkias unless you're really confident in your Echelon, which on Tyrannical weeks I would say is likely to be the hard spot. Mists, really annoying thing about Mists this week is Spiteful Shades preventing you from opening the next door of the Mists. If you have effects like Vanish or Shadow Meld, Feign Death, that can sometimes drop combat. Sometimes it doesn't, though. It's unreliable for those effects, being able to help you drop combat so that you can then open up the next door and you don't have to just kill off the Spiteful Shades, right? And you can just go into the next pull. The other way you can handle this is as the mobs are dying, if you kill them right around the same time, you will actually get to drop combat for a sec. You drop combat until the Shades actually start spawning and fixating people. So you can use that to sometimes have somebody open the door. So try that in particular. In particular, if you've got 2 mobs left, try and kill them at the same time so that then you can bash your head into the wall and try and have it open up. Usually if all 4 are dying, it's hard to make them all die close enough to each other. Plaguefall, all the bosses are really hard. One thing you will almost always want to do on Tyrannical weeks, but really just every week, is grab this Anima Power before doing Icus. I say that every week, but it's good advice every week. Sanguine Depths actually is a dungeon where there's some of the most benefit to the affixes this week, which is that you can use Spiteful Shades to feed into the Venthyr Lanterns. So definitely consider doing that. With basically every single Venthyr Lantern, you can make it a lot easier to get up to 10 stacks, and potentially to refresh your stacks, so that they'll last a little bit longer. It can be really good to go into Tarvald. I mean, it is just really good to go into Tarvald with a full 10 stack. That'll make it a lot easier on Tyrannical. Although if you then end up wiping to it, everybody's going to want to hearth out because you won't have it for the next attempt. Spires, kind of annoying with Spiteful. One thing you can do is, if you have like a movement speed effect, you can just jump off the edge here and get caught and brought up to this side. If everybody in your group has that, it's faster to do that than to kill the Spiteful Shades. If even one person is going to have to wait, you know, unless you're going to be setting up CCs and stuff on this pack with whoever gets there early, it's faster to just kill the Spiteful Shades, but it's a pretty common technique you'll see out of some groups is just launching yourselves off this edge and getting carried up. Necrotic Wake, a thing that I see happen for a lot of groups in this dungeon is you'll back yourself into a corner where, you know, say you're like over here, right? And I guess I shouldn't draw on my route, but say you're over here. I guess I can do this with this. Say you're over here. And you know you've got this pack that you've dragged over into the side here, and Spiteful Shades start spawning, right? And say this pack is like all dying over here. You're in kind of a rough spot, right? Because obviously there's a wall back that way. The Spiteful Shades are this way, and if you run out this way, you're going to go and pull that pack. So you're kind of stuck in a bad spot. So what you need to do is, well, you can bail yourself out with a AoE crowd control effect, or you can instead pre-position yourself so that you're actually over here as the pack's dying over here, and then you have a nice, safe escape plan. So I would say, especially when you're fighting in this area, and then later on, this can happen for you when you're fighting over in this area, and sometimes, depending on how you're pulling, when you're fighting in the Necropolis, all that can happen for you, so look out. Theater of Pain with Tyrannical Necrotic is a fantastic time to bust out a single target set. You know, the bosses, there's 5 of them. It's the most bosses of any dungeon. Some of them are really tough. So going for a full single target build makes a lot of sense on those merits. And there's a lot of mini bosses as well, right? A lot of the trash count is earned by fighting single targets as well. So I would definitely recommend this. This is one of those few dungeons where I would like play a raid build or a single target build on a lot of specs, especially this week. So definitely consider making those adjustments if you're doing the key at any kind of level where things can, you know, where you're worried about wiping to any of these fights. Even it's just time efficient too. All right, that was a quick look at the dungeons this week. Good luck out there. Hope you have fun getting your score. Come check out my stream, twitch.tv/Ratnus. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.